Hi everybody, I'm Jack the Rambling Raconteur, and I hope that you're doing well. I hope you're having a great week. It is Tuesday, so I want to do a quick Tag Tuesday book tag video, specifically the pain over joy reading tag, which sounds like a math problem. I don't have my calculator, but I could probably pull up some Goodreads analytics that might help me solve these prompts. Let's find out. It was originally created by Jessica at Lady Loves Dead Reads. I was tagged by Brian at Bookish like a month ago, just with what was going on in life. Bunch of questions focused on pain wasn't really the right fit for my headspace, but let's see how we're doing tonight. Prompt 1, do you mostly read books illustrating pain or books illustrating joy, and why? There have been a lot of great responses to this question across the past month. Brian himself had a great response around the idea that we read in part to develop empathy for other humans, and that because pain is a more universal human experience and joy is more personal or specific, that's one reason. Janet Remembered Reads had a really great response that involved nonfiction and the idea that there are horrifying things happening to human beings right now. And developing an awareness of that and seeing our connections across humanity and how our place in humanity to change those types of things is valuable. I 100% agree with both of those ideas and many other ideas that have come out. I do want to suggest, though, that there needs to be a balance, that we need joy, that joy is a specific human experience, and while specific and personal, is a vital human experience. I think that sometimes we run the risk of almost defining people by their pain, and almost ignoring the joy that they possess, or the potential for joy that they possess. This is something my wife and I discuss very frequently, like from her own experiences and sort of how she perceives things, happening here in our family, in our communities, and in the world. And so we need joy as well. Now, as evidence of this, I want to get at the heart of this question, or at least one chamber at the heart of this question, which is that it was about books illustrating pain or joy. So, I have an example. This is from the Nose book by Al Perkins, illustrated by Joe Mathieu, and it talks about your nose being in pain. So we've got, but sometimes noses aren't much fun. They sniffle. They get burned by sun, which does happen. It happens to me. But just a couple pages later, it goes on to describe the various ways your nose can be injured. It goes, just suppose you had no nose, then you could never smell a rose or pie. So there are good things. There's joy in smelling a rose, smelling a delicious meal. Well, there's also pain there with the nose. And you're thinking, okay, but that's a kid's book. So if there was an adult book with illustrations, because we saw some balance there. Well, I have an adult book with illustrations, and don't worry, it's not those kind of illustrations. In Umberto Eco's The Infinity of Lists, which is this anthology around the different ways we represent lists in art and in literature, we've got some cool paintings. So we have Martyrdoms by Carpaccio and Dürer, pain. But we also have, in the same book, another work of art. This one is from Cagliari, The Wedding Feast at Cana. So a wedding, joy. This specifically, Jesus is in this painting, and he's about to turn the water into wine, which means this is a wedding with extra joy. So again, this balance of pain and joy. And I think, in all seriousness, reading a book illustrates joy to me not necessarily through the characters or the narrative or the nonfiction narrative in history, but it represents joy in the sense that as human beings, we are alive. And within our lives, we are creative beings. And we see that with works of art, with works of writing, with the choices we make. We see it even in athletic events. Like when I watched the Champions League final last weekend, or I watched the NBA playoffs and the Phoenix Suns get a win, which did happen tonight. There is a series of choices. There's creativity involved in each of those endeavors, and that is joyful. Like as creative beings, there is a joy in the ability of creation and recreation or recreation. And so I think that's how books illustrate joy to me. Even in nonfiction, we have this sense of triumph and tragedy, and like the triumph of the human spirit in the face of horror and oppression, and that's real. But beyond that, there is this idea of the creativity of people trying to achieve solutions. Like when I was reading Parting the Waters, and the different ways that people tried to be innovative and advance the civil rights movement. That's amazing. And it just goes to show that yes, like pain can be a universal human experience and joy can be a specific experience, but that's the whole point of why joy is special. Each human being is specific and unique. Works of art and works of literature, works of nonfiction illustrate the immense, infinite expanse of the human imagination, but they also illustrate the unique singularity within each specific imagination and each specific human being's identity. So that's how I derive joy when I'm reading. And that's how books like genuinely illustrate joy for me, even if they're a crime novel or, just regardless of the subject matter, the book's existence in and of itself can illustrate joy. Other ways that books illustrate joy, like The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin, we're just finished reading this with a group of friends, and the whole conversation we were having, that was joyful. Like I was rejoicing in the fact that I was getting to reread a book I love with other people who are friends and getting to learn from them, learn not just their ideas about the book, but the experiences and the perspectives they bring from their own lives. That's amazing. When I read a work like Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, yes, Janie experiences pain, but she also experiences, joy. And there's an idea for me that because we are alive and we're creative beings, joy to me is sort of our natural state. It's just that pain becomes our more common state because of the bad things we do to each other, the choices we make, the bad things people do to us. The pain can become a very common state, but joy really, to me, is our natural state. And so finding the windows where that happens is just very rewarding in reading. And then you have books where it's not just that we're in communion with a creative mind, the mind of the writer, but that we get a window into fictional characters who seem to represent, creative solutions, innovative solutions, that seem to be real people, not just constrained by the plot, like fish in an aquarium. And examples of that might be, Lizzie Bennet in Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, or Circe by Madeline Miller, where there's a real sense of joy in this book, not necessarily because of the good or bad things that happen, but because of the different choices that the character gets to make. And so that's just something I try to focus on in my reading. Now, other questions. Prompt 2, do you see books about pain as more intellectually valuable? Why or why not? No. We need the balance. We need both. So pain is a very valid and very real part of human experience. Joy should be a very valid and real part of human experience, and I believe that we need a blend of both. Prompt 3, why do you think major book prizes like the Booker and the Pulitzer mainly award books about pain? Well, maybe it's that they're just so full of joy, their cups runneth over and they want to fill it with something else. I don't think so. I actually think it can be traced back to our friend Aristotle, who's maybe not actually our friend. And in his Poetics, he does this whole section describing why tragedy is amazing and the emotional catharsis we achieve in tragedy, and these different ways in which people in a society need to be able to act out powerful, deep pain and emotions without wreaking havoc on the society and on themselves and each other. And that drama may allow them to do that. And we don't have Poetics Book 2, which ostensibly was about comedy. It's Umberto Eco actually has some thoughts on that. But I think part of the real reason is this feeling that joy is somehow slight. It's a lesser topic. It is not necessarily a less important topic, perhaps, but really this sense that it is a slight, almost like juvenile or childish topic. I would say the other side to that might be this sense that perhaps a work that involves a lot of joy may feel like it's almost bragging. Like that there's a certain arrogance or boastfulness in celebration. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. Prompt 4. Do you use and agree with the phrase guilty pleasure? Why or why not? Not with reading. Now, the pain and pleasure are often thought of as antithetical rather than pain and joy. But guilty pleasure is not reading. Those would be other activities, you know. Prompt 5. Do you think books centering on joy are guilty pleasures? No, because reading is not a guilty pleasure. But also, the second part of that would be that I find it very, very rare for a work to actually center on joy. Joy, because of the way it is so specific, and the idea that like pain and joy both occur, you know, I don't want to say cyclically, but they reoccur frequently. And so for a work to center on joy, it is very rare. Even something like PG Wodehouse's Joy in the Morning, which has it in the title, there's pain in that book. You might have an example like perhaps Gargantua, or maybe some of the books of Pantgruel by Rabelais, maybe. Perhaps Tristram, Shandy by Laurence Sterne. But I think if we're really finding works that center on joy, those have to be compressed because of the ephemeral experience that we have with moments of joy. And so seeing works of poetry that are shorter might be a really good example of that. So, and though poetry is certainly not a guilty pleasure. Prompt 6. Do you read in secret every night after my daughters get to sleep? Are there books you read but never talk about because of embarrassment, shame, or guilt about liking them? No. I think I did a video on a Western last week, which normally I think that would be regarded in the what you read one. Certainly not. Now, I don't talk about everything I read at length, but I do mention it in my marginalia videos, which I'll have one of those coming up for May later this week. But I'll mention it, anything I've been reading, and it kind of runs a pretty wide spectrum. I think that's fun. I'm trying to achieve that balance, trying to have the full human condition. I will add, though, that I generally don't do videos where I just rip into works that I don't like. When I was very much in somebody who would do like categorical takedowns when I was a teenager or in college, and I could do it well, but I don't feel the need to do that. Somebody else might really love that. I don't want to diminish their joy of some book that they really love that I look at. It's like, no. So I don't do that. But no, I'll mention what I read. And prompt 7, who do you tag? Well, this tag's been around for a month, but two people who I have not seen do this tag are Jordan Parsons and Tom from Tom and Ellie Books. Love to hear their thoughts on this. I do hope that you're having a good week, and I really do mean that. We do experience pain, but I hope we're experiencing joy as well. And so I hope you're having a good week, and thank you, as always. Bye.